If you're vulnerable to psychic damage from roguish language, stay away from these gibbering mouths. But if you intend on listening to this podcast about enriching your fantastical group hallucinations, you're too far gone already.
Your next Chimera encounter is going to be far more multifaceted, and here's why. In this episode, we find some answers to what few elements are critical to making a basic monster more interesting.
And can the Chimera become something to inspire legendary levels of fear?
And what happens when you turn Jordan loose on the monster manual?
Good things.
Welcome to the Hook and Chance podcast. I'm Travis.
And I'm his brother Jordan. For those of you that think that my voice sounds a little off, it's because my whole face is clogged with snot. Allergies are hitting me hard. I'm a little nasally. Sorry, everyone.
Around this time of year, he just turns into a giant booger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so audio is definitely my best format. Makes sense.
So today we're talking about chimeras.
Yes, they're one of the oldest monsters that I know of from old-timey Greek legends told around the campfire.
For some reason, I don't... Okay, A, does anybody tell stories about a chimera around a campfire? And B, old-timey sounds like old Westy, not old Greeky. I don't know who associates like, oh, it's an old-timey folktale. Nobody thinks Greece when you say that.
Both before I was born, that's all that matters.
Anything prior to your birth is old-timey.
Yes. And when telling this tale around the campfire, you would talk about the chimera's snake butt and lion body and the goat that was fused onto the lion's back.
This definitely has that kind of old-timey feel in the sense that it really wasn't all that terrifying.
At the time, yes, it was, very much so. And it was one of the original Greek monsters because they did a lot of improvements with things like the Hydra and the, what's the three-headed dog?
Cerberus.
Yeah, Cerberus. Cerberus is more terrifying to me than a goat bleeding in my face. And that's B-L-E-A-T, not bleeding. Yeah.
Got it. I mean, it does have that kind of aspect to it when I think of a chimera. You know, it's kind of like Ray Harryhausen. You know, he was the stop motion animator that was very, very popular in the 50s and 60s for monster movies. You know, it's got that like kind of stilted movement, but really, really impressive. Like, you have to pay your respects because he was like the godfather of stop motion monsters in film. Like, he was the dude that popularized that and made it possible. But you watch those movies nowadays, like turn on, say, Jason and the Argonauts, it's not the kind of like horror inspiring thing that we are used to today.
Right. So you're saying the Chimera is the godfather of monsters, but on its own, it needs a little beefing up.
I mean, it's a fucked up child's drawing. It wasn't incredibly skilled. Yeah, so it doesn't really inspire that level of fear that you kind of want when you drop a monster onto the table.
Yeah. So you're saying we got to build some tension towards this monster. We got to make it intimidating and scary and just make it actually pose an interesting threat to the party.
Right. Yeah. If you just take this monster and you drop it into a field like a random encounter, it is just a bag of hit points.
That can fly.
It's got really great action economy because it can make 3 attacks in a turn. And so really beyond that, like it's not got a lot more going on for it.
Right.
Some fire breath, some flight.
Those tactics will get stale after a couple of passes.
Yeah, and then you also have that like suspension of disbelief with this 3-headed ding-dong of a monster. You can tell I'm not a huge fan of the Chimera.
Travis doesn't like the
most things
sewn together animals effect of a Chimera.
Yeah, like pick a lane. decide on a theme and stick with it and really like use it to its full potential. But dragon head that isn't as smart as a dragon, lion head and idiot goat on the side is just, it doesn't inspire a lot of fear in me. So maybe we can figure out how to fix this in the Kinship Camp.
This is Kinship Camp, where rich histories and diverse quirks are explored between weary adventurers around the safety of the fire.
All right, let's start with a recap of the Chimera, the monster presented in D&D. It is chaotic evil.
It's got 114 hit points. It's got a fly speed of 60 feet, so that's interesting. That makes it a little bit more unique.
Without getting too deep into the numbers, its high stats are strength and constitution, which means it hits hard and it takes a lot of hits.
And then everything else, all of the rest of its stats are pretty average. Its one standout is that it's got a really high perception and a passive perception of 18, which means it knows you're coming.
Yeah. Then you get into its actions. It's got the multi-attack. It can bite, hit you with its horns or its claws, which I think it's kind of interesting that they worked in this, like, the bite does piercing, the horns do bludgeoning, and the claws do slashing, even though, I mean, I'm not super familiar with every rule, but I feel like as a character, you're not really like, I'm going to defend against slashing with this character.
Yeah, I really don't have a lot of that into my build.
Yeah.
Nor do I build. I just make a character.
Play.
But yeah, I think you're right. That is a lot more relevant to the monsters than it is to the players.
This is kind of a weird choice unless you're playing a Chimera. But then it's also got the fire breath, which needs a recharge, so it's not doing this all the time, but 15-foot cone, blast you with fire.
And it's helpful that it's got some range.
Yeah, but only 15 feet worth of it.
Yeah.
Still got to get very close.
Yeah, it's not got a ton of range. So you've got this like creature that melees. And that's the main problem that I have with a Chimera is that you got to get up and close. All it does is fight. And it's got some hit points and it deals some damage. But like, if we just run it as is, then it's got not a lot of awe.
All right. You've made your point.
Yeah, okay.
You don't like the Chimera.
I got it. All right. I'll tone it down. So let's just open this up a little bit. What works with the Chimera?
Well, something that isn't really written into it, but I think is really powerful is its unpredictability. And I guess this would stem from its chaotic evil alignment, focusing on the chaos. When I'm looking at this thing, I'm seeing 3 animals with 3 completely different drives and sets of instincts. I mean, imagine being attached to your 2 best friends by the neck. How well would that go over the course of a day?
Oh, that would go so poorly.
And we're not talking about your friends. We're talking about a goat, a lion, and a dragon.
And not just attached for a day. They grew up together. They fucking hate each other.
Yeah, this is their lives. And who knows, maybe not grown up together in a nice, idyllic childhood, but fused together as adults. Who knows how this
monstrously.
thing... Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, yeah, if you think about that, they're going to have different sleeping schedules, different hunting tactics. This thing's always going to be tired and cranky. It's going to be doing totally unpredictable things. A lion might pounce on you and bite into you, but this thing is going to fly down, pounce. The goat head is going to bleat on its way. It's going to do 3 flips because all 3 are trying to like take control of its form as it swipes at you and flies away.
And there is going to be no discernible pattern to any of this. So players thinking that they can figure out the tactics of a Chimera are in for a horrible surprise.
Yeah, they should be struggling on that. Then we get into the mythology, which I think is a huge part of it too. And clearly there's a lot more than we're going to cover here. But there's a legend of a hero, Bellerophon.
Yeah.
He's the one that doth slain the Chimera. Is that Greek speak?
That's close enough-ish.
Yeah. The basic points are that there was this king that was probably real jealous of Bellerophon because he learned to ride Pegasus for one, and he probably had ripped abs.
Well, just baller move. You know, taming Pegasus.
Yeah. He's also the son of Poseidon, I believe. And so the king, he thinks, well, I don't like this guy. I want people to worship me instead of him. So let's send him against an unkillable beast. So he says, hey, Bellerophon, do you want to kill the Chimera for me? It's invincible, by the way.
I like that just anybody can like throw down the gauntlet to anybody else. Like, not like, hey, let's fight, but hey, you should go, try and kick the ass of this invincible monster.
Yeah.
And then Bellerophon, for some reason, has to be like, okay. Greek stories are all about the trials. Like, you had to do 3 trials. I'm compelled. Why? Who is holding a gun to your head and saying you have to go kill the Chimera?
Well, I think it's like they're the celebrities of the day, right? It's like, do you want to keep your hero status? Do you want to stay in Hollywood? Well, you got to make some good movies. You got to kill some badass beasts.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You got to go make some stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, quit laying around. You can't just milk it.
So anyways, he gets up to this thing, starts hailing arrows down on it like he always does. A little bit of an aerial sky battle. Realizes that he can't puncture its hide with his arrows because it's invincible. So he has to get creative.
But hold on. Bellerophon's kind of a punk. What kind of impressive combat is that? Like, I know that he eventually... I know where the story's going. But... just to, like, sit on Pegasus and rain arrows at your target?
Yeah.
Heroic equivalent of, like, early Greek drone strikes. Like, it's not it's not a magical battle. That's kind of a punk way to do battle.
Yeah, and I think that's what had happened up to that point. He was against foes that didn't have wings. So he'd literally just pick them off.
Just
Done.
pick them off.
Got this one, no problem.
How cool am I? Actually, it's the flying horse that's cool.
Yeah.
You're an asshole.
But yeah, so this one was a bit tougher because it does have the wings. It can't be pierced. So he has to get creative. So he puts a block of lead on the tip of his spear so that when he gets up close, he jams it down the Chimera's throat as it's trying to breathe fire on him and melts it, lodges it right in its throat, stops it from breathing. Now, what I think is truly wild about that solution to this problem is that he's got a snake breathing through his butt and he's got a goat breathing on his back.
So we're pointing out the logical flaw of stopping up one of its throat holes.
Yeah.
Only for it to like, I can't breathe, and die and somehow forget that it has 2 more mouths.
Yeah, I guess. Like, you think if you make a creature, a monster, that's biggest thing is having 3 throats, that's not the way to kill it.
Kind of its main focal point and what makes it a monster in the first place.
Yeah. But sure, Bellerophon, go for it.
Oh, the size of that plot hole. So the other thing that I think that we can improve on the Chimera is to make it more monstrous, to really play that aspect up. Because again, on the face, it doesn't strike me as intimidating. It's a weird, child's drawing.
Or maybe a puzzle that the child put together wrong.
Yeah, combined 3 separate puzzles and just jammed, forced all of the little puzzle pieces to fit together.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't do this right. So how do we lean into something that makes it more monstrous? And I think that we can, really play up the 3 different types of heads that it has. Talk about, like, what noises do each one of those heads make? And are they all combined into one terrifying noise that nobody can really pin down? Where does it live? Like a goat, does it live high up in the mountains? And we're gonna have the heroes, our players, walk all the way up a mountain past all of the bodies of this thing that it's left behind, all the viscera just dripping on all of the rocks, because they're on this death march to this intimidating cave.
Yeah.
And of course we're going to make them go inside the monster's lair. Why would it come out?
So you're saying there's just a lot more tension we can build into this thing with some horror elements.
Well, like we've talked before, we've touched on the setup to really good horror. And the point is you have to pay it off. All of the setup is what makes the monster terrifying. So again, if we just drop this thing in a field, it's going to fall flat. If we build up to it and make the players anticipate it and not necessarily know that they're fighting a chimera until they finally see it, then we can really nail it. And you and I have talked about this at length in our 3-parter, The Bones of Horror. But I mean, we've used that same system time and time again to help us frame the setup from establishing what normal feels like, peaceful, idyllic, all the way to set up unease and dread, and then straight through to horror or the final reveal of the monster.
Right, so let's get into that. We always need to start with some kind of a simple adventure premise to help us build that tension.
The mayor did it, is the common one.
Yeah.
The mayor's always behind it.
Hook and Chance classic. The mayor did it. And this mayor, like, whatever details you use for your game world, obviously you do that. You're the DM. But, I mean, a basic framework could just be based on that mythology. The ruler wants to kill you, the party, by sending you after the unkillable monster, the Chimera.
I love that because, again, we're using the mayor did it, but we're also drawing from the mythology. But that aspect, like that dynamic between the players and this king or ruler or something like that, they don't like you. The only way to really, if they were to outright attack you, then that makes them look bad. But if they implore you, oh, please be the hero.
Yeah.
We need you. Go and kill this unkillable monster. Well, you'd be an asshole to turn it down. And they hopefully get you killed in the process. What a brilliant plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Probably after you've gained a little hype as the party in the community, whatever it is.
Right.
Hey, these guys are heroes. Woo. I think something that could add a lot of tactics to that fight and also kind of leans into the mythology could be like a situation where the Chimera actually is invincible in D&D, but going to fight it, the party knows that they've been told by an NPC or something like that there's a ritual that they can cast on a weapon, like an arrow, that will make it vincible. Like if they hit this thing at the right time, then this arrow will temporarily make it so that the Chimera is as it appears in the stat block.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder if there's something that we can do to make sure that the creature is, regenerating or something like that, so they can even have several fights with it. But to try and attack it off the hop, and they're doing some damage to it, but they just can't kill it. And maybe, like you said, it makes that thing, the ritual creates some kind of weakness. And then we can cast that ritual, but it all depends on which one is the dominant creature at that time.
Right. So you're saying that you could have, a ritual for dragons, one for lions and one for goats, and you would have to time your hits to actually line up with whatever animal behavior is the most dominant.
Right. So there we've got some tactics involved. Now they're going to have to, suss out what it is. They're going to try and whittle it down, but that killing blow can only be made by either an enchanted weapon that they've enchanted with this ritual that we're discussing, or, you could have multiple players get their weapons enchanted for that right creature, and only that person can deliver the killing blow, which makes it that much more challenging strategically in the fight. And we're going to create even more chaos by doing something like that.
And I think another restriction to throw on that is to have the ritual or the enchantment only last for a short period of time. So they got to cast it like either at the very beginning or during the fight. They can't just cast them all back in town. And
I love during the fight.
Yeah.
Like 2 rounds to cast it as a ritual. We could take that approach if we were going to, enchant a single weapon and say, like, this is the one weapon that was going to kill it. If we were going to do 3, then we could say that ritual has to be cast within the hour or something like that.
Yeah.
You don't want to make it overly complicated.
And, if you don't want to take any players out of the fight, you have the squishy town wizard come with you to cast the rituals. Then you got to protect them.
Yes. Now there's some dynamism in that combat.
Yeah.
You've got keep the Chimera back. You got protect the wizard that's doing the enchantment. Then you've got, try and predict which head it is that's in current control.
Yeah.
I love all of those facets. That's a way more interesting combat.
So we got to start by building up to it a little bit. So the normal that we start with is going to be back in whatever community it is. You're going to have, I think we play up the animals of the Chimera a little bit, do some foreshadowing.
I like that because if we have them walking through town, that's a great way to A, like you say, foreshadow, and then B, remind them that that's going to play a role in this eventual fight. So you get an opportunity like a circus is in town and there's a lion present and that lion is stalking something in its cage or in its enclosure.
Yeah. And as you supply up, maybe the supplier, the town merchant, is a goat farmer, and they're, you're watching these goats do crazy things as you're trying to barter and deal with this.
Well, all three of them, I wonder if the players would pick up on that. If you did pepper in these three details about the three monsters and show them what it looks like when these three creatures individually attack something.
Yeah.
So you got the goat butting something, you got like a gator or a crocodile or a Komodo dragon or something like that doing like a pounce attack and laying in wait, and then you've got the lion stalking something.
Yeah.
So circuses in town, you get to lay out all of that and you get to foreshadow it, and then you're going to use that to show exactly which head is in control at the end.
Right. Doing callbacks essentially to what you mentioned earlier.
Right.
All right, so let's build up to unease.
Now the ruler has suggested that there's a monster out there that's killing people.
Yeah.
It's killing livestock. We don't know what it is. We've had trackers try and track it, but it's really inconsistent. We think it's a lion based on the paw prints, but for some reason we're hearing all kinds of other noises, and nobody has survived to tell the tale.
Well, yeah, totally. We've sent people out to fight it. They haven't come back.
Right.
And maybe, you can use that squishy town NPC wizard to show you a scene that they managed to get from scrying, but much like a modern tech show, they're like, it didn't really work out. My spell kind of half crapped out on me, but here's a bit of a hologram showing just the fighter, not the monster.
Oh, within the scrying spell, you can cast that on like a location. If you're not sure what you're trying to be looking at, you're just trying to get a sense of what's inside the cave.
Yeah.
So then you're just getting the audio, and then you hear the fighter or whoever they sent last going in there screaming bloody murder. It's unkillable.
Yeah.
And then you hear the disgusting retching sound of claws or something like that disemboweling him, and then his like bloodied face just slaps down right where the scry was cast.
Yeah.
That kind of like, it's the security camera footage trope.
Totally. I'm going to use that more. Wizard security camera.
Well, then we need to get into dread.
Right. So this is where they're getting closer to the hunting grounds or lair. The party's going to start to see these foreboding clues as to what the creature is and what it's done.
We can have the ranger look at some of the bodies, try and do a bit of an autopsy on it and say, oh, this thing was like bludgeoned to death.
Right. And also has multiple teeth patterns.
What bludgeons, bites, lacerates? This is strange.
Yeah.
And has been burned. Yeah. I like that.
I say you throw in some blood trails from the Chimera occasionally attacking itself. Like there's not even a victim. It's just the dragon just chomps the goat neck, and it's like, fuck off.
I like that. Yeah. So there's just like no body. Oh, there you go. It's flying.
Yeah.
No body, no tracks, just blood all over the grasses on your way there.
Yeah. And I actually rethinking that it starts with the goat just randomly butting either the lion or the dragon.
Of course, because the goat's the dickhead.
Yeah.
Goats are notorious. Jordan and I grew up with goats, and they're idiots. And the males are generally kind of cranky, and they just want to fuck with you. Like they just want to headbutt.
They go from just peacefully eating grass to trying to take out your knees in a half a second.
So the goat is definitely the instigator. The dragon follows it. The dragon ends it every time.
Yeah. And of course, I think you're going to have prey all over the place that's half eaten because, the lion or the dragon starts with a predatory move and then the goat pulls it away. Like the goat's just like, I'm fucking out of here. and they leave something with like 2 bites taken out of it. So it's like this predator isn't a normal predator.
Well, and I think we even need to see, as a part of that, juxtaposition on their route out to the cave, I feel like the players need to see a normal creature. So, like, they're thinking they're getting closer, and then we throw an owlbear at them or something like that. And they go, oh, was this the monster?
Right.
That was kind of anticlimactic. They continue to find these telltale signs of something much bigger. No, the attack pattern doesn't match.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good call. We soften them up a bit with some normal creatures of the wood.
Oh, of course.
And I think something pretty creepy and terrifying to me is the fact that, the description for the Chimera in the monster manual says that they toy with their prey a bit. And I'm thinking maybe it leaves some of its prey on the edge of death in that toying, whether intentionally or accidentally. But like maybe they jam them into some hard to escape places, some crevices in the rocks in their caves. It's like pretty gruesome.
Yeah. To have the corpse of something fall from the sky.
Yeah.
What it is hard to see because it's, blocked by the sun or something like that. You can't quite see it through all of the sun in your eyes. But to have, something fall down, a full-size owlbear.
Yeah.
And go, oh, this is definitely not it. What was that? It's something that flies now. Now we're building up that tension, and we're still telling the players what it can do. And that is really our job as the DM, is to forebode, is to lay all of the foundation. It's up to them to figure it out. But now they know that it flies, that it has several different attack patterns. If they haven't figured out it's a chimera, if they're unsure, it's going to be revealed to them fairly shortly.
Yeah. Well, I like that too, because that could tie in with your owlbear fight. It's a bit easier of an owlbear fight because it just fell out of the sky.
Right.
It's still alive, but
it's a wounded,
yeah,
mutilated owlbear, but it's got enough fight left in it to fuck them up a little bit.
Yeah.
I love that.
And they're just like, well, this clearly isn't what we're after.
Well, then we need to get into the terror piece. So this is, they got a glimpse of something in the sky, but now we need to lean into it a little bit more to really ramp it up.
And here's a little something to inspire your descriptions of the sounds that a chimera could make. First of all, lion roars are produced from vocal folds vibrating, and apparently is scientifically similar to a baby's cry for attention, just a bit deeper.
Ew.
And by a bit, I mean obviously a lot deeper.
That is just a spine-chilling.
The thought is unsettling.
It's very unsettling.
And then you got the fact that goat bleats and screams are pretty distinctive. They can even sound like a human scream. If you've ever heard a goat do that cry. If you heard that in the night.
Don't. Because I know exactly what you're talking about, and I will not be able to sleep tonight. That's upsetting. Deeply.
Yeah. Look that one up. So I'm imagining, those sounds mixing together, wires getting crossed. Maybe it's not even the right throats that are making the sounds.
Yeah, so throwing in a mix. So honestly, if I was running this encounter, my first stop would be online to see if there's any YouTube sound effects or anything that I can use that would allow for some mix of those three. And to be able to layer those on top of one another, I'm certain.
Yeah.
I'm certain that somebody's done it.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
With the terror, this is the best part. And this is the reason that I really love having monsters exist in caves. And kind of going back to my problems with simply dropping a monster in the middle of the field, of saying, oh no, it's a chimera attack, roll for initiative, is that the crossing the threshold moment is so important. This is kind of where D&D came from with dungeon crawls. Every new door that you go into has some level of terror and dread attached to it. And so the players choosing to enter the mouth of the cave, that is the crossing the threshold moment. That is the moment that they know that they're about to get into this shit. They know it's coming. It has to be.
Yeah.
They're inside the monster's lair. And secondly, them choosing to do so of their own free will and volition, that is what makes them heroes. They are heroic because they're going into that cave bravely.
Yeah. And of course, getting into that cave leads to the final part of horror, which is the monster reveal.
And for me, if you'll permit, I would definitely build this cave in such a way that it has the ability to use its flight, because that's a massive asset for the Chimera, and it needs to be able to fly around in there. It also needs to be able to use some of the crevices to hide. It also needs to be able to fly out of this thing, meaning that there's some kind of crack or crevice that goes all the way to the outside that is different than the entrance, which means that when we do reveal our monster, once they are fully inside the cave and they're like, oh, there's nothing here that we know of. Like, we're finding, we can see its nest or it's, we can see all these bones. That's when it strikes from behind, because it left and then it came back in through the entrance to stalk them like a lion do.
Yeah. Plus dragon.
Sure.
Well, to add on to that description of the cave, I think that it'd be pretty cool to have a couple of levels of cave too. Like, as they come in, I'd almost imagine some hallways that once were water channels.
Ooh.
So it's a bit maze-like, but it goes up really high. They can kind of climb outside of those water channels and it opens up, but then that's really slippery and they have to like jump over the water channels if they want to move around.
Love it.
Stalactites and mites and big pillars of stone.
And I think the final piece here is that we need, like, when we finally hit that monster and we start to roll for initiative, again, this could very well end up to just be a trading blows, super boring. Now it's actually working against all of the effort that we put into leading up to it. Now it's just a shot for shot kind of fight. So we need to do what a good DM do and build some layers to this encounter.
So this is basically just us putting together everything we've said so far into 3 kind of structured stages of a combat. And that first stage is going to be as they come into that cave. The Chimera is going to pop it off with a, hopefully for you, the DM, a stealthy strike from behind.
You've got that ritual casting that is probably happening for some of the players right now. And then as far as tactics, like, we need to consider the tactics changing in each stage of this combat. So with the Chimera, typically I would go into this and I would say, okay, this monster, it's going to go on the offensive, then it's going to go on the defensive, and then it's going to flee. That's like 3 separate stages of a combat. But with the Chimera, you've got 3 separate identities, 3 separate types of attacks, 3 separate approaches to combat. So could we play that up? Play up the chaotic nature of a Chimera and say that the goat, their attacks is that, like, the headbutt and then the fake retreat. You know how they kind of do that back up and you're like, okay, so they're not coming at me. And then they follow that up with another headbutt. Then you've got the dragon, which is definitely like hide, then attack from above. And then you've got the lion, which is the stalk and pounce approach. So we can swap those out as fast and loose as we want in every stage of this combat.
Right, and pair it with a little bit of flavor of that animal so that the party can pick up on it,
right,
and realize who's leading the charge. So again, the party's defending, they're trying to stay alive while this ritual is cast. Once that's accomplished, we can move into the second stage, which is where the environment changes. Like, the party's going to have to come out of those channels and kind of get in the open where they can see it. It can't keep hiding from them.
Right.
And they're probably going to be taking the offensive at this stage in the fight. Like, the party has to hit the Chimera now with these enchanted items.
Yeah, so this thing is like going from some of the different cave formations. It's going from hiding to fighting, back to hiding again. And it's really trying to be as chaotic as possible, while they are simply trying to hit it with these enchanted weapons.
Yeah. and its screams and calls are echoing throughout the cave, of course, hard to pin down. And then we move into that third stage of pure chaos, because this thing probably isn't used to this kind of pain.
As soon as it gets hit with that enchanted weapon, all bets are off.
Yeah. So it's probably thrashing about, creating as much chaos as it can. And to hit the point home about goats being already pretty chaotic, I saw a clip when I was looking this stuff up about an escaped goat that sat there bashing its head against a glass door for 20 minutes
Jesus.
before it finally succeeded in breaking it, and then it just bounded off.
What the heck? Oh, it probably saw its reflection. It was just like, I'm going to mess that dude up.
Yeah.
Somehow it knows exactly what I'm about to do, and we keep meeting heads every time. Poor goats.
Yeah.
Just so dumb.
But anyways, would this thing be doing that half the time in its cave on its own? Like degrading its integrity?
Yeah. Smashing into some of the support columns, knocking stalactites and stalagmites over, generally being chaotic. Like you said, this is the chaos phase. Everything, this cave is coming down.
Yeah. So you can definitely throw some environmental hazards to the party with that. And their tactics at this point are going to be take it down hard and fast. And I think with all of that, you've got some much more interesting turns to take than just flybys, triple hit,
Right.
fly away.
Yeah. Well, I think we have something that I would actually run. This sounds like a lot more fun than simply throwing a chimera at somebody, especially letting them know up front. There's a bit of a mystery, there's a monster hunt, there's some dread. This is way better than I was initially anticipating a chimera fight would be like.
Yeah.
I think we saved it.
And if you want to get real wild and weird, make your own chimeras.
Ooh, that's right. We could absolutely make our own. Now, I know that you and I wanted to each make one. So does that make this next segment a proving grounds? Or since we're creating new monsters, is that a Lamashtu's breeding pit?
Well, I think we're going to pit these against each other and see which one people like more. So I think it's a proving grounds.
I don't know. I like those slurpy sounds in the beginning of the Lamashtu's breeding pit. So I guess it's really up to who edits.
Damn it.
This is Lamashtu's breeding pit, where the most vile and deadly of creatures are birthed and unleashed upon doomed adventurers.
So this is the last facet of the chimera that I know you've probably been thinking about this entire time. There's a lot of flexibility. The chimera is jamming 3 animals together, and that instantly makes you think, what else could I jam together?
Oh, you can jam anything. Jam it all.
Yeah. And our patron Leprechaun reminded us on Discord about that Mythic Odysseys of Theros book, and it's a mix and match chimera. They actually have some mechanical rules there for DMs to make their own chimeras. It's pretty cool, it's pretty straightforward, and it works very well. The nice thing about chimeras in that book is that their stats are fairly simple, so if you do have an idea for an animal you want to jam in there, it isn't hard to just give it a new ability, reflavor their attacks, you're good to go.
And I mean, we kind of expect the party to figure out what is happening when we start to lay down a chimera. We kind of expect them to piece it together. If we were doing the bludgeoning and the gnashing and the scraping and all of that kind of stuff, we're going to lay down some hints, and chances are they're going to come to the conclusion that it's a chimera. If you make your own, all bets are off. They are not figuring this shit out, and when they do finally come face to face with it, whatever monstrosity that you've created, it is a holy shit moment. All 3 of these things are in the same body. What in the Sam hell is happening?
Yeah. And good God, when you expand from animals to anything in the monster manual, you can cook up some real terrifying creatures really easily.
All right, so lay out your chimera for me.
So imagine a great serpentine beast covered in mouths that can chuck spit or lightning out of any of these mouths.
What?
It gibbers telepathically in your mind. It climbs around any environment with its tentacles with ease, while also using them to pull you into its constricting snake-like body. How's that?
Wow. Wow. What the hell have you made? I picked up on the mouther, the gibbering mouther in there somewhere.
Yeah. The gibbering mouther is that first of the three, which gives it the ability to gibber. And it gives it blinding spittle and the extra mouths, of course.
Yeah.
And you got the Otyugh, which gives it tentacles and telepathy. And I just thought the telepathy and the gibbering was a great little 1-2 combo.
Oh, yeah. That's a terrifying prospect.
And then I threw a Bahir on there because that's the giant snake
Yeah.
that can swallow. It has lightning breath. It can constrict you, and it can climb.
Wow.
So this thing just darting around the environment, causing maximum. What the fuck is this?
I like that. That is something else. Well done. I'm a little worried that I didn't go as buck wild, but we'll see. So imagine a creature that not only has a burrow ability and it's slithering around through the ground, but then it busts up and flies and then speaks within your mind and starts casting spells on you. Mostly good spells. Okay, I made a weird one. All right.
Mostly good spells.
Yeah.
Hey, it's about jamming together things that shouldn't be jammed.
Right. Don't jam that. So first, and the primary one here, is the Coatl. So intelligent, questionably good. Like it's a good creature technically.
Weird choice.
Yeah. But kind of like the dragon head, it's this like serpentine creature with wings, and we've got a grapple constrict ability. We've got true sight. It can cast sanctuary on itself. It's got a shielded mind from your casters within the party.
Oh.
And it has telepathy.
Yeah, I mean, a monster slinging all that would be pretty weird.
So then you roll it into the basilisk, which has the ability to petrify.
Rough.
And it has poison damage. And then you throw an Ankeg back in there. So now you have an acid spray, a burrow speed, and tremor sense.
Yeah.
And what makes this a truly terrifying thing, and again, granted, it's good. However, the party is generally kind of bad. So I really don't see it being a problem to have one versus the other.
Yeah.
And the other two are really kind of unaligned. So whatever the Coatl wants to do is,
right.
You know, it's in charge for the most part. But where this gets truly terrifying is going back to the Coatl, its shape-changing ability.
Yeah, I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? It's just whatever it wants to be anytime?
Well, until it reveals its true form to you, it looks like an NPC.
Wow, so you've created a doppelganger of nightmares.
Yeah, oh, yes.
Yeah, fair enough.
All right. Well, who wins?
I guess you got to tell us. Would you use Jordan's Chimera, Chimera A, or Travis's Chimera, Chimera B against your party?
Which one do you think is more formidable? Which one do you think would win in a fight?
Yeah.
Chimera fight.
They would both absolutely kill the original Chimera. Let's agree to that. That Chimera is dead.
Yes, 100%. So let us know what you think. You can either hop into our Discord or just leave a comment. If you're listening to this on YouTube or any of the other places, feel free. Leave a comment, leave a like, whatever. But let us know which one you think would win and which one would definitely mop the floor with your party.
Yeah. Thank you so much to our patrons for letting us have this compelling Chimera conversation.
They themselves are a many-headed beast.
Yeah.
Thank you very much to Peacock Dreams,
DM Thunderbomb,
Marley R,
Gar the Pirate,
Time Warp,
Nico Y,
Zach G,
No Ma'am,
Michelle T,
Alan E,
Felix R,
Chris F,
The Senate,
Lucas D,
the GM Tim,
Nevermore,
Thomas W,
Ty N,
Heavy Arms,
Eric R,
Aldrus,
Leprechaun,
and Will HP. Thank you all so much.
You make it possible. You make the dream work.
Thanks also to Tabletop Audio for the sound effects that you heard in this episode.
You can follow us at Hook and Chance on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and Reddit.
Join an awesome community of players and DMs by joining that Discord. Let us know who won.
Thanks for listening, and never
play great
trust
games.
a goat. They're the deadliest of the three.